High Plains Technology Center, turning education and training into workplace success.
Oh, back to school, to prove to Dad that I'm not a fool.
High Plains Technology Center, education at the speed of business. School is now in session.
Good morning. This is Katie Shirley with High Plains Technology Center. I've got with me today Falisha Bowers. Good morning.
Good morning.
So Falisha is wrapping up her second year. Is that correct? 1.5 years?
Yeah, 1.5.
Of being a health careers instructor. So how was this year?
This year was much smoother. I feel like I was a little bit more prepared and there's a lot of different aspects to being faculty at in health careers as well as at High Plains Technology Center. And so having a year under my belt or almost a year coming into this year was really beneficial, being able to prepare for the students and our clinical aspect that goes along with that, as well as just helping the students prepare for their state leadership conference and international leadership conference. And so this year has been a lot smoother, I feel like.
Right. I know it seems like once you get to year 3, things are just like you've got one and then you get another year and then you're like, okay, now I'm feeling a lot better about
that's
kind of the
what they keep
timeline
telling
of
me.
things.
So,
yeah. So we're glad to have you. I was thinking during the awards assembly how great, just, how well-spoken you were presenting the awards and just what a great fit you've been. Tell us, you came from, so you are a dental hygienist,
yes.
Right? So we got you from industry just about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And so in health careers, like you were talking about, there is a lot of aspects. So even just in your major itself, you have, is it 16 career majors or is it 17?
We have 17 health career majors that we offer through our program. And the students get to choose, and Ms. Cottom and I really try to, through their first year, we kind of see their strengths and their weaknesses, and then they may have an interest, and we try to help them possibly look at different avenues if we feel like it would be a better fit for them, or if we feel like maybe they're not pushing themselves hard enough, we may encourage them to do a little bit more or a little more challenging career majors simply because they're capable. Mm-hmm. And many times students don't realize what they really are what their possibilities are. Yes, or what their potential is. And so I think as an instructor, that's one of the best things about being an instructor is being able to help those students see that within themselves. And then there's a lot of other aspects to that, and then guiding them and trying to place them in the right clinical site so that they can kind of flourish and recognize their strengths, but also build on their weaknesses.
Right. You guys have quite the task on you, and you all do wonderful. So Polly Cottom, she teaches, now you guys kind of conquer and divide for the most part, and she teaches the first year students, and then you take the second year. Is that how that goes? So
she does a lot of the anatomy, physiology, and I help some with that, especially when we start doing the anatomy in clay and building the different body systems. We work together and do co-instructing quite a bit there. And then, we have a lot of communication between us as far as, trying to figure out what's going to be best for the students for clinical sites. And then I handle trying to make sure to get them set up in the right places and following up with those clinical sites, and then visiting the clinical sites and making sure that our collaboration is good with them, because we are very blessed with our community and with the different places that are opening their doors for our students to come in and do their skills. And so we really want to make sure that we're keeping a good
communication between two. Yeah, that is a very vital part of the program, is for them to have the places to go for clinicals. So
absolutely,
that is wonderful. Let's talk about, so last week was our awards assembly, and we had 2 different sessions, one for the morning students and one for afternoon. And we also presented our student of the year at that time, and your program had one of those. So Faith Parsons, and she's a senior at Moreland.
Yes.
And so tell us just a little bit about Faith and the kind of the things that led to her becoming a student of the year.
So Faith, when she came in last year, she wasn't really sure exactly what career major she wanted to do. And after having a conversation, she had a traumatic event in her life, medical event that had happened. And so after having a conversation with Miss Cottom, she was really inspired to look at doing being a surgeon. And so that was kind of last year. And then as she moved into her senior year, she chose a really strenuous career major, being medical assisting. The book work alone is extensive, and then there's a lot of clinical hours and a lot of skills. But along with that, she held a local member officer position last year for our student organization called HOSA. And then this year she decided that we went to Camp Ignite last May, and I took the students there. And that's a leadership camp that's through HOSA. And so it kind of, she was already in a lot of leadership positions through her sending school. So that was nothing new to her.
Yeah.
But this camp allowed her to kind of develop some of those skills a little bit more, and also kind of choose, what she was most interested in as far as leadership is concerned. And then this year she chose to run for a state leadership office, and she got vice president for our region. And so each month we would travel to a different location, working on with other officers on leadership qualities to lead to our state leadership conference. And so along with those duties, she also had duties that she was working on privately with our national HOSA advisor, Amy Warner, each month as well.
Wow.
And then she was taking college courses and then keeping up with all of her progression. And so whenever, when we had the opportunity to elect a student for Student of the Month, it was easy to choose Faith because she's got really high work ethic. She's very driven. She is punctual, respectful, and just, a really strong leader within her class. And so we chose her as an option for Student of the Month, and then I'll let you kind of talk about how.
Right. So then throughout the year, we have 2 Student of the Months each month. And then when it comes to the end of the year, we pull them all together. And then there's a very, very high, like a very high rigorous, what do you call it? Like rubric to go through. And so she came out on top with some of those qualifications. And so was presented. Amanda Mee, that was on the show with us last week, was the Student of the Year for the morning group. No, the afternoon group. That's right. So Faith also, and that's what we would have her on here today, but she is headed to FFA convention this week. So another part of just very involved student. So that is wonderful. And her role with HOSA, it sounds like they do a really good job just getting them really honing in their leadership skills throughout the year. So that's been a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think that because it's a health organization for students, they're learning a lot of skills that are going to help them as they move into different programs in their college, or even if they're going to, if she does become a surgeon, being able to manage staff that are going to be under her and communicate appropriately and respectfully. They just really build the students' abilities, even if they have a little bit of weakness in some areas, which is phenomenal. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that is great. So I thought we could talk about some of your other awards that you guys presented, because I know there's so many that with that many career programs, some of our other career majors, some of our other programs might have 2 majors or, just one. So it's kind of hard, I'm sure, for you all to narrow down what awards to give.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that part of the glory is that Miss Cottom and I are really given the opportunity to choose, what we want to do.
Yes.
And I appreciate that, from administrators. And so when we choose, there's a few different aspects. We look at academic excellence. And so when we're looking at that, we're trying to focus on a student that is there consistently, that's doing their work. And typically, basically, it's a student with the highest GPA. And that is, kind of across the board for our first year students, because they're all taking the same classes together. And so our system that we use averages that out, and then it just shows us who has the highest GPA. And that kind of gives us an idea who has the highest academic excellence through our first year. And then our second year, it's a little bit more challenging because you have to look at all the different career majors. Right. But still, I mean, the system we use, I feel like, is academics is what it's called. And so I feel like it does a really great job of helping you to narrow that down. Right. And then we also had clinical excellence, and this is
Let's say who won your academic excellence, and then we'll move on to the next one.
So in the morning, we had Harley Williams, and she's from Fort Supply, and she's a first-year student. And then we had Gavin Gore, and he's a second-year student from Buffalo. And then in the afternoon, we had Camber Brecklin. She's a Woodward student, and Alicia Graff. And Camber is a first-year student, and Alicia is a second-year student.
Awesome.
And so, I'll add that all 4 of those students are extremely active in their sending schools,
right,
while keeping a 99.6 or higher GPA and a very rigorous academic set. So
very commendable.
Yes. And then we have what we call clinical excellence. And so that is focused on our second-year students. And those students are we're looking at the skills that they are being taught while we're training them, how well they do in the labs when we're teaching them. And then a large portion of the clinical excellence is really based on what type of feedback we're getting from our clinical sites. And so one of our morning students, Nevaeh Sanchez, she's from Moreland. She was one of our first students to go to clinical, and we placed her at Dr. Kirkendall's office. And they do an excellent job at their office with our students, and then they're always very willing to accommodate our students. Right. So I just want to say how much we appreciate them. Yes. And Caitlin was giving me a lot of great feedback on Nevaeh and how well she was doing with her phlebotomy sticks. And then Skylar Allison from Woodward, she's also a phlebotomy student, and she was placed at the DLO office that's outside of the hospital. And the person in charge there immediately contacted us and was telling us about how confident Skylar was and how she had really great patient rapport and worked with the patients and was just doing an excellent job with her skills in the clinical setting. And then we had a student that had a friend that had been seen by Skylar that had, the student came in and said that the patient had come to her and said that they're typically a really hard stick, and that Skylar got it the first time and that it wasn't difficult for them, and they really actually enjoyed it where they normally don't.
Wow.
And so, and that just kind of goes back to the fact that, the students are working hard practicing on their skills in the labs before they get to the clinical site. Yeah. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And then we do what we call a Diamond Award. And I feel like, so many times some students kind of are lacking the ability to believe in themselves, or maybe they don't push themselves as hard as what they should, and I'll use the analogy that a diamond, it presents itself under pressure. And we expect a lot from our students with the academic, rigorous work that they're having to do. And so one of the students that we chose for this was McKinley Gibson, and she's from Shattuck. And last year she kind of struggled a little bit, but she was still trying to get her work done and get it done on time. She was coming to class, but you could really tell she struggled a little bit with confidence. And this year she came in and she worked really hard to learn phlebotomy. She's had great feedback at her clinical site with Dr. Behrens in Shattuck, and she's just really blossomed as an individual. And so we felt like, she's been under a lot of pressure, and she's just
coming out shining.
Yes, exactly. And then Cassandra Gutierrez is from Woodward, and she's a senior student, and she did basic medical assisting. And I'll say that last year she really thought she was going to do CNA and phlebotomy, and then near the end of the year she changed her mind, which was, I think a little bit surprising to her, but we just encouraged her that she's got a lot of work ethic and determination. And
that gets you very far.
Exactly. And like I said, basic medical assisting is one of our hardest career majors. I mean, you have 64 chapters along with an excessive amount of skills.
Yeah.
And she was one of our very first basic medical assisting students to get to clinical.
Wow.
And it was early, like end of February maybe, and typically I'm
Yeah.
not sending until after spring break.
Yeah.
And so she worked hard over the summer. She came in and worked hard every day in class, and she just really started to shine as a student.
Yeah.
And so I feel it's valuable to bring those students to light so that they can have the ability to believe in themselves when they may not have always had that option before.
Yeah. So we're running out of time, but there was one more award I wanted us to talk about from Moreland on the test that got every question right.
Bryson
We have to
Clark.
talk about that 'cause that's
Yes.
incredible.
So we, the first about 6 weeks of school, we teach medical terminology with Dean Vaughn, and they're testing every day.
Yeah.
And memorizing, and then they have the option. Well, they do a final test, and it's 350 words. And he made 100%
Wow.
on his Dean Vaughn medical terminology.
That's incredible.
Final. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And he's another student, I think, like he's just going to excel in the program and really takes his work seriously.
And now is Bryson a junior? Or
He's a
senior?
junior.
Junior. Okay. So we'll get him one more year.
Yeah, he's
So
wanting to go into radiology to be a radiologist when he actually graduates and go on to college. And so he's going to do radiology and EKG next year.
Awesome. Well, so many amazing things coming out of the Health Careers program, just as all the other programs at High Plains. So thank you for coming on and just
Yes.
sharing some of the highlights. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a good day.